Welcome back to Sabre Talk. I'm your host, Brandon Bombardo. I am here with two special guests today. I have Connor and David from Geneva Capital. Guys, how you doing today?
Good.
Yeah?
Good little 2-hour drive here.
Yeah?
Other than the speeding ticket on the way down.
Had a little bit of run-in with the law on the way down, huh?
Yeah, that's how she goes.
They are the fastest financing company out there. It's true.
Literally and figuratively.
Yeah, literally and figuratively. But no, I thought it was an appropriate conversation to invite you guys down for because we're getting into the end of the year here. We're kind of in a unique time in the world right now. I feel like there's a lot of misinformation out there right now when it comes to the world of finance right now and really the state of the world. You know, I think a lot of people are assuming the economy is a lot worse than maybe it is right now, is what I'm noticing. People come to you and they're, I'm not sure what the economy's doing. And on my end, I see customers every day and I talk to them and business is booming. People have more work than they know what to do with. They're staying busy. They're spending more money than ever trying to get products made or produced. And the customers are waiting longer than ever trying to get things done. So to me, all signs point towards you should be investing in yourself and, you should be really taking care of business as usual. But I think we got spoiled for many years when it came to interest rates. Let's be real, right?
It was an anomaly.
Yeah.
Almost.
I mean, you think about that. Like, there's a lot of people out there right now that they don't know what interest rates were before, right? I mean, to them, their first real investment was at these lower interest rates. Mm-hmm. And so to them, that was the normal, right? So, well, I could get 2%. Well, that was not the way for many, many years. And I think a lot of people need to look past that and realize that, like, my father, the old JB, when he bought his first house, the interest rates he was paying on a house, compared to what I paid on my house, like much different. And yet they still had to buy houses, right? And so you look at some of these payments and it's like our payments today on a lot bigger house isn't that different that some of the payments that, our parents and whatnot, grandparents were paying. The world's a lot different, obviously. When you look at the, how much money people are making nowadays is also a lot larger than what they made back in the day. So as you look at it, it's all relative. And so I think it's fair to say that we got spoiled. Would you guys agree with that?
100%. And I think last time we had been here on the podcast, I brought up that stat of, what was the highest interest rate? I think it was back in 1980 something. You were close. It was like 26% was prime.
Yeah.
And that was, back then. And I think average running rate is, around where we're at today.
Yeah.
So it's not like, like I said, it was an anomaly of the 3% days for a few reasons.
Yep.
And some people view that as the baseline. Like you mentioned, that's what they saw.
Yep.
That's what they base their, insights on now.
If I can't get 2%, then I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Right,
and then you're leaving money on the table, right? So.
Yeah, 100%. And if you look back, it probably stings a little more in this recent short term because we're coming off of these historic lows.
Yeah.
And like you had said, money was essentially free. Any bank would give you 3, 4, 5% on a handshake, and that's just not where the market's at anymore. And so the silver lining is, on a $1 million mortgage, difference between 3% and 6% over 30 years. I mean, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, right?
Yep.
But on a $75,000 machine tool, the difference between, let's say, 6% and 8%, where the market's at today, on a 4 or 5 year term, I mean, we're really talking probably $100 a month. So
right.
Contextually, in terms of cash flow for the business, profit made at the end of the day, I mean, it's relatively an insignificant difference.
Well, yeah. And then, I think the thing that people sometimes forget about all that is we're not talking about things that don't make us money here either. I get it when you're thinking about buying a boat, right? A boat is just a fun toy and you don't make money on it, okay? You maybe the dollars and cents have to make a little bit more, sense there, if you will, right? But we're talking about equipment here, right? And when you're buying things for your business, you have to have a different mindset on it because you're buying something that is going to make you more profitable or something that's going to advance your business and make you able to, make you capable of doing things that you maybe aren't capable of doing today.
100%.
And so that extra $100 a month, if you don't spend it, you're costing yourself more than $100 a month, are you not?
For sure.
Correct.
You know, and we talk to these small businesses, you know, whether they're cabinet shops, job shops, just general manufacturers, people that are cutting product for different businesses in their area. And you ask them to define the opportunity in terms of monthly dollars. You know, fast forward 6 months with this router or this plasma in your shop, what are we talking about as an opportunity for your business? And when they say, you know, I've got 10 grand worth of work that's locked in each month, 15 grand. If we're talking about a $1,500 payment versus a $1,600 payment, the difference is minimal, and it's not gonna impact the success of the business.
Yeah.
You know, Connor had a great story from, who was your old guy that you talked to, had been in business since the 70s, and what was his mindset about, you know, borrowing money regardless of what the interest rate is.
Yeah, it was a great story. He, you know, I tell him, just like I tell all our customers, you know, hey, this is where you're at. This is your interest rate. You know, that's where the market is.
Yep.
Glad we could get this for you. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's, you know, and this is coming off of the, like you said, the 2%, 3% days.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, this is just fine. You know, he's probably at prime at 8.5. And he tells me the story. He's like, back in my day, he's like, I'm pretty sure my dad debated giving me up for 14% and thought that was a screaming deal.
Yep.
You know, it's all perspective again.
Yep.
And you got to look at a larger picture. And, you know, the one thing I always, you know, mention too, it's human nature to go and find the best deal possible, right?
Absolutely.
I do it. You do it. David does it. We all do it.
Yep. You should see the deal he got on the speeding ticket earlier.
yeah, heck of a deal. You know, and then you sit back, you know, it's easy to just stay in that mindset.
Yeah.
Right? You are getting a good deal, and then you ask yourself, am I going to let $2 a day, $100 a month really halt me from, you know, potential growth and, you know, long-term views and goals of what I have for this business, right? And the answer is always going to be no. $2 a day, all right, I won't go get the gas station coffee.
It's only no if you think about it logically, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you always got the guy out there who's going to say no to that because somehow he just justifies it.
Yeah.
But what I've always reminded people of is exactly what you said. It's not about the payment, right? It's what are you going to do with that equipment for that month or that, you know, piece of technology for that month, right? Well, in a month, if I can produce, let's use a cabinet shop, for example, right? If I'm a 1 or 2 man shop and it takes me a week to produce cabinets, right, for this job. And now with the machine, I can do 2 jobs in a week, right? Or 3 jobs in a week. And now instead of doing 2 or 3 jobs a month, I'm doing 4 or 5 jobs a month. Does that payment really matter anymore?
Simple math. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter because you're doing it already without spending $1 more, and you're doing the job not thinking about it. So the next 30 days, you're going to keep doing that job, whether you do it the hard way or the easy way. But if I can do twice as much the next month, I'm not losing money. I'm doing what I was already going to do, but now instead of taking 2-3 months to do it, I'm doing it in 1 month.
For sure. You know, and it feels like a good chunk of our customer base, especially that we see through you, is these relatively young businesses, 3-4 years in business, and this is maybe a first large machine tool purchase for their shop, and they're always cutting with a sliding table saw, and they have this really manually intensive process, and not discounting that you're a craftsman, you know, if you do it in that fashion, but taking a step back, looking to see where that CNC is going to bring your business. You said it perfectly. If I was cranking out 3 kitchens a month, you know, this machine would let me do 6 or 8 or even more. And just focus your efforts more on, you know, stepping back and, you know, working on your business versus being so sucked into production every day and working as an employee in your business.
And that's what I love. I love explaining that to business owners and even, you know, shop owner or shop foremen and people that actually run the shop. It's at some point you need to shift your focus to be able to work on your business and not for your business, because your business, there's not a person that you can hire that knows more about your business than you. And at the end of the day, if you can't get out and sell yourself, and if you can't spend the time talking about your product and what you love, then you're already leaving money on the table, because you can hire a sales guy and he can be the greatest sales guy, but he doesn't truly have the same passion you have.
For sure.
And that's my thing, is that every time you add equipment, you've freed up your time to do other things that are far more valuable. And let's be honest, in today's world, you can't find a bunch of employees out there anymore. You can't find the people with the skill that you have. And therefore, you're trying to train people with lesser capabilities than you have to do the job to your level. Well, a CNC machine, it's going to hold that same tolerance and that capability of what you program it. What you tell it to do, it's going to do it day in and day out. So you're not having to worry about, is it cutting it wrong? Like, the reality is the machine's going to do it repetitively and at a fraction of the cost of what a person's going to do, because you can't hire a guy. The way I look at it, okay, let's talk about machines for a second here, right? We have, machines anywhere from, we have $9,000 machines all the way up to, $100,000 machines, right? But let's talk about a $30,000, $50,000, and $80,000 machine, right? Let's talk about some of these numbers for a second, okay? If you look at those numbers, that's pretty, that's 3 different levels of shops, right? A typical cabinet maker right now, or a professional sign maker, or whatever you want to say, they're going to cost you a minimum of $30,000 a year, right? And I would say that's probably
below.
Yeah, I was going to say that's probably low end, right?
Yeah.
And I would say you're probably in that $50,000 to $80,000 a year salary for anybody that has anything that I would consider to be skills of what you're looking for. So now you start looking at, I have to spend $50,000 to $80,000 next year to hire an employee to keep up with the volume. Does that employee stop getting paid the following year? No, they're going to get paid another 50 to 80, and we're probably going to need an increase because cost of living, things like that. Not only that, and some guys are out there listening right now and watching this and saying, well, I don't pay my guys that much. Well, you do, because if you have any insurance that you factor in, time off, the things that you're buying to help accommodate that person, everything in your shop that you do adds up as a value.
Right.
And your time you spend, for lack of a better word, is babysitting, right? You have to supervise and keep an eye on people. And let's be honest, some people don't show up.
Money.
Time is money, right? You're sitting there dealing with all of that, and it's like, it comes at a cost to your business. So now if you can go spend $50,000 or $80,000 on a piece of equipment that you're going to own as a shop saver, our average life expectancy is over 10 years, $80,000 one time over 10 years. It's not that much money anymore.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. And if we look at, we do so much repeat business, thankful to have that in this marketplace. And if we look at, what are these trends or these commonalities between these businesses that seem like they've got that growth recipe down, right? And we have dozens of examples of, let's say, a 5-person shop that went from $2 million in business in 2021. Then they became a 6-person shop that did, let's say, $4 million in 2022, and now they're a 7-person shop. They added, call it two employees, 40% growth in terms of labor.
Yep.
Yet they've doubled their business year over year. And the difference always is that, yes, they had 1 machine when they started with those 5 employees, but at that 3rd year, they had 8 machines, only 7 employees. And so it's just this, we've talked about it on the podcast before, every business has its own unique recipe in terms of, how do we invest in machinery to complement man, right? And
correct.
Those businesses that are scaling and growing quickly in today's market, they're not doing it by adding employees. They're doing it by adding, capable income producing machinery to really scale the business to that next level.
It's all technology nowadays. Like, you look at it like what we do today. We were joking before with the podcast about cars, right? We were saying like how when I used to drive, I had to print out the little map. We had a piece of paper that you had to sit there and like read the directions while you're driving. And now it's all on your phone, right? GPS is built. Remember the TomToms? Like, people used to have TomToms. Like, that was a
right
thing.
on the dashboard.
Yeah, but like nowadays it's built into your car, or you use your phone. I mean, that's what 90% of people do. It's the same thing in your business. Like, if you're still doing things with sliding table saws and all that, like, I get it. I have no problem with saying, hey, you're a craftsman, right? But I'm going to say it. If your grandfather who started this business could have bought a CNC machine, he would have.
100%.
Like,
100%.
The only reason he did it by the way that you're doing it now is because he couldn't do it any other way. Like,
spot on. And what I always go back to is, everybody in this industry that own their own business, they love doing this, right?
yeah.
And you want to love what you do for your whole life. And if you don't adapt and grow,
Right.
Most likely, more times than not, you're going to have to go back to work somewhere else. Your
Correct.
business isn't going to make it.
Yep.
Keeping your feet set in the cement, not adapting and changing and recognizing where the industry is going with the technology is just going to halt that, right? And we want to help you guys do what you guys love.
Yeah.
And that's, the CNC, building cabinets, whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Of the world.
But you guys win that. I mean, that you said it yourself, return business, right? people often say, well, why does the bank care so much? Well, because the bigger you get, the more equipment you're going to add and the more technology you may have to fund. And therefore, it's you guys are cultivating a relationship. For you guys, it's not about getting them one time. Like, there's a lot. Let's talk about that for a second here, okay? Let's talk about who Geneva is, because there's people probably watching that don't know who Geneva is. And for us, Geneva's been a partner with ShopSabre for several years now. You guys have been a great asset to us to be able to connect customers to equipment they need while financing it for those who maybe don't have the cash flow or don't want to spend the cash flow. But, there's people out there wondering, like, what sets Geneva apart? What about, Geneva is different than a U.S. bank or a Wells Fargo? There's a million people out there that are advertising. I mean, you turn the radio on nowadays and you hear a million ways that I can borrow money, right? Why Geneva? Like, let's tell people what sets you guys apart.
We're cut from the same cloth in terms of ShopSabre with 25 years coming up on time in business. I feel like we started our companies about the same time, and we just pride ourselves on being, a Main Street type bank, right? That treats people how they like to be treated. We've got a very sharp focus in woodworking, metal fabrication industries. So we know these marketplaces, we know the equipment, we know the competitive landscape, we know how that business runs, and if you've got 10 years time in business and good credit, anybody will lend money to you, right? And we know that we stand toe to toe with whether it be a U.S. bank, a Wells Fargo, these big national banks. Their rates are as competitive as they come, and Geneva competes against those banks, on deals weekly, sometimes daily, and we're standing toe to toe. So we've got a really low cost of funds. We've got a high degree of flexibility, just this great ability to structure the transaction to the customer's needs. And, we keep on falling back to every business is a little different, whether you want to put money down short term, if you have a slow summer where you need a seasonal type payment, if you're a startup business, if you have challenged credit, being that we are in this industry, we know the equipment, we know those marketplaces, we can make assertive lending decisions where other banks would say, no, I can't help you.
That's something that I love about you guys, and I'm glad you said that, is because there's a lot of things with banking that is kind of cut and dry, right? There's a lot of banks just turn people away because it's easy, right? There's a lot of them out there that do that. U.S. Bank, Wells Fargo, big companies, right? They're big for a reason, right? They got big for a reason. They're not dumb. They do things that are right for them. But the thing that I love about you guys is I can't walk into a Wells Fargo and be treated the same way I can walk into, a Geneva situation. And the reason I say that is you guys, like you said, you really do learn about your industry. Wells Fargo doesn't necessarily know what a CNC router is or a CNC plasma is, where you guys understand that. And while you maybe can't run them, but how people are using them, the industry. You guys go to the trade shows. I mean, I've seen you guys walking around the trade shows for years. Okay. And it's stuff where you're walking around learning the industry. And a lot of times you guys aren't there for any other reason than learning sometimes. I mean, I've seen you guys at shows that you don't have a booth. You're not there trying to gain, any customers necessarily, as much as you're trying to meet with the vendors and understand their equipment so you can better write the equipment as the needs come up. And it's actually how we met. I mean, the reality is David, you and I, we crossed paths for years before we actually wrote deals together. Right. And it wasn't you walking in saying, we need to write your customers. It was, tell me about your business.
Yeah. What are your challenges? How do you gauge success at this show? And everybody's a little different, trade show specifically, whether it's, when we did AWFS, we set a goal in terms of number of machines, but not every equipment manufacturer is like that. Correct. Some of them just want to meet customers. Some of them just want to get qualified leads. Others are there just to scan badges, frankly. So, we've that's been one of our core strengths, is just thinking outside the box and trying to be, good people that you'd want to do business with as a customer, but also, be partnered with on the dealer side of things.
You guys aren't the suits, is what I always remind people. I think people
this is the nicest clothes that Connor and I own is what we're wearing right
now. It's funny because I've met you guys a lot of times and you've never met me in a suit, and I love it because that is I think the natural people hear banker, right? Suits and tie, and they're out there for the money. You guys are we talk hockey a lot, right? I've talked to both you guys about hockey a lot, my son being in hockey, and we've been to hockey games together. We've gone and done things outside of work that have nothing to do with work. We don't go to these things and then talk work, right? We're real people talking about the things we love,
Right.
our hobbies. And it's something that I think sets you guys apart is that it's not always an angle, if you will, right? So a lot of people assume the banks, there's always an angle, right? There's not an angle. It's like you want to know the person, get to know them, we cultivate a relationship. And like I said, David, you and I knew each other before we actually did business together. And
Right.
it was one of those things where it's like, it's just nice to get to know who you are. And it makes writing the deal easier because if I run into struggles or if I have a situation, let's talk about COVID, right? COVID hit unexpectedly on a lot of people. And a lot of people are having trouble with their banking, right? How do I pay a payment on something if my business is shut down? And you guys worked with a lot of people.
Yeah, I'd argue that compared to our peers, we had a really high degree of flexibility there. And some people were just asking to ask, frankly, can I push our payment out? But if your business wasn't shut down, people were good to work with. And even people that were 60, 90, creeping on 120 days past due, we tried to be just really solution oriented. So I've been with Geneva just shy of a decade now. And it just really boils down to, and I've talked to you about this, be a good human, do a good job, show up every day, treat people with care, work your hardest, golden rule type stuff.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The rest really just takes care of itself. So I am a perfect example of you don't need to be the smartest, the sharpest guy. You don't need to know everything, but if you have a good attitude and you treat people like you'd like to be treated, the rest really will just take care of itself.
Well, I've always said that here at Shop Sabre. I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room. If I am, we're all in trouble. Trust me. We don't want to be following my lead all the time. But I've always tried to hire people around me that are really smart in their areas and know stuff that I don't know. And you guys are no different. When we partnered up, you guys know an area that I know nothing about. I mean, I'm not real great at finance. I'm not good at that. There's a reason why we don't have a financing department here at Shop Sabre. I don't want to be involved in that because I don't know it. But you guys are really good at that. And kind of stepping into that, let's talk a little bit here about financing in general, right? We've talked a little bit about people being spoiled and some of that, but really, what does the market really look like right now, guys? I mean, let's be honest. The people are listening right now, and they're, the world's on fire. We're scared. We don't want to spend money. What's the world really look like from the banking standpoint?
I always say, and I've mentioned this to a few coworkers, financing is fun in 3%. Everybody wants to finance then, right?
Yep.
But it's needed in the 8%.
Agreed.
Those coming into financing at 8%, that, like you said, it's all mindset. 8% is not bad, but those coming in financing at 8% need financing.
Correct.
And it boils down to a couple things, I think, within the financing is the industry you're in.
Mm-hmm.
The woodworking, metal fabrication, home building, cabinetry, all that correlate with the Shop Sabre machine. This industry is not slowing down.
Correct.
We've seen that the financing is not slowing down as well.
Yep.
You and I walk through the numbers
Absolutely.
monthly and year to date, and you sell a lot of machines last year. People are starting businesses
Correct.
still this year. I think we're about even,
I
if
agree.
not up from last year, right?
I
So
agree.
the industry is still moving forward. Financing as well is still a huge asset for businesses to grow, right?
Yep.
David always says it too. Why use our money when we can borrow somebody else's and have this machine pay for that?
Yeah, correct.
Use our money elsewhere.
Correct.
To
And you're speaking as a consumer. Why
As a
use
consumer,
why
yeah.
use our money when we can use somebody else's? And I love that phrase because it's like you're gonna spend your money on something. Why not invest in something that's gonna make you money? And my thing is as a business owner, especially right now is the time that you should be expanding and taking. I've always reminded a lot of people that when you think the economy is slowing down, you really have to look at what is actually happening around you. Because turn your TV off. Let's start there. There's so many people that listen to things through the news that, we're all in trouble. And then I come to work and I get 10 calls from people who can't keep up with their business. Well, if I listened to the people on TV, I wouldn't have come into work today.
For sure.
But my phone's ringing like crazy trying to get people getting in here. It's doom and gloom. People are trying to do that. And the reality is from the banking world, 8%'s not terrible. I mean, you go back pre 2%, that's where we were at. It was 8%.
8%.
That was, I mean, most of my career has been spent at that 8 to honestly 10% range. Like I've spent a lot of years selling people machines at that range. And so, we dropped down to that 2-3% and people were spoiled. But the reality is now we're back to what it was and people have taken it as a negative. And it's like, there's a lot of other things in the world that have raised costs much worse than financing has right now.
And
you're still buying it.
5%, yeah, the cost of goods sometimes, it's 40% increase.
Correct.
At some points in time.
Yeah.
And the one thing that, to your point, we work with startups. We work with businesses that have been around for 100 years.
Yep.
And those are the ones that I always kind of am curious about, because like you said, we like to build a relationship with our customers. So I always ask, what do you attribute to 100 years time in business? And this is thinking from a consumer mindset. And I've had a handful recently that have said, we don't want to think like everybody else. If everybody's thinking we should not buy, that means we start buying equipment and expanding.
Correct.
Opportunity is out there.
Correct.
And that's how they continue growing. And
risk is what grows a business.
correct.
People who sit there and wait and do what everybody else does, they have the same results as everybody else. They're not going to grow. They're not going to be it's the companies that are being aggressive and going out and getting the work. They're winning. And at the end of the day, what I laugh about is I've told everybody, if you go back 10 years, right? And you wait on the Shop Sabre, right? If you were 10 years ago looking at buying a Shop Sabre and then you're like, I'm going to wait a little bit. It's just not the right time for me. And now you're ready to buy one. Did you save money? No.
Not a
it
chance.
costs you more money today.
Exactly.
Like the machine's prices went up. Obviously, cost of goods, as you said, steel has gone up, all this stuff. So yeah, you passed because the interest rate wasn't right. Like today, if you wait and you say, well, I'm going to wait till the interest rate might drop down. Okay, maybe the interest rate does drop again. Maybe it goes down to 5%. Maybe you see down in that 5 range again. Maybe one day we see that. Do you think the machine's going to is going to be the same cost it is today? No way.
And what's really left on the table is the opportunity cost.
Correct.
Right? How much business, how much profit, how much revenue did you forego? How much growth did you leave on the table by
Saving
having
a couple $100.
Yeah, saving 1%.
Correct.
$15 a month or $1,500 on the machine.
Right.
Right. And Connor hit the nail on the head where these successful legacy businesses that have been around forever, they just have a different mindset.
Yep.
And that's how they get to that point.
Correct.
And if we have two 5-year businesses, identical on paper, but one has $5,000 in the bank, the other has $100,000 in the bank, at a rate of 8 or 9%, that guy that has less cash is going to grumble about the rate. The guy that's got $100,000 is going to say, this is just what it is. We need this machine. That's where the market's at.
Yep.
So we know it's competitive. We shopped it against, our local bank, and Geneva was right there with them. So let's just get this deal done. And I feel bad for that business that, that only had the couple thousand that didn't have the confidence to,
Correct.
Strap up and make a big growth decision because fast forward 6 months, it's that big business that's now stealing the customers from that small business.
Correct.
Because they don't have the capability to produce the jobs at the margins, and the price points they need to.
And that's exactly it. That is it right there. Is bringing more in-house gives you the ability to go after the business. And that's what people lose track of, And the other thing is right now, let's talk about it. End of the year is hitting us. It's tax season next quarter is the tax season, right? So there's a lot of people looking at it right now that at the end of this year, they're going to be writing a check. That your business, you're probably writing a check. I have never met a business owner who's like, good news, at the end of the year, I get money back. Like, it doesn't happen. Businesses don't get money back, right?
Nope.
Businesses write a check every year. And when you start looking at writing that check at the end of the year, you're going to write it to one of two people, right? You're going to write it to the government, or you're going to write it to yourself. And what I mean by that is, how do you write it to yourself? Well, you buy things, right? If I know I made an excessive profit this year, right? You made $100,000 this year. It's better to look like you made $20,000 on paper than it is to make $100,000, right? Because otherwise the government wants some of that $100,000. So you're better off to find out things in your business you can invest in that brings that profit down a little bit, right? And what I'm talking about here is Section 179, right? Section 179, it's a great financing or a great tax option, tax write-off. I'm not a tax professional here, okay? So let's start there. I'm not going to tell you how to qualify.
I think we should all raise our hands.
Yeah.
We are not CPAs.
Yeah, none of us are CPAs.
I was one class away from an accounting minor in college.
Okay, he's
Again,
as close as we got.
My hand is still up.
He's as close as we got. None of us are claiming to be it, okay?
Yep.
I say that because anything you hear from this point forward, I ask, go see your CPA and ask how it applies to your business, because I can't speak for your business. I can talk about our business. I can talk about things that we've done. But 179, first off, what is 179, guys?
Section 179, it's a beautiful thing. And how it works is when you purchase machinery, equipment, and to your point, it's usually quarter 4, maybe end of quarter 3, your accountant's coming up saying, hey, buy equipment.
Yep.
And you might be asking yourself, well, why should I do that?
Yep. I don't need it.
I don't need it. Well, the reason is Section 179, and that write-off is when that equipment is shipped to you and installed and working in your shop, you can write off that full equipment price based off your tax bracket that year. So let's just say $100,000.
There you go.
You're in the 35% tax bracket. That's a $35,000 write-off this year. Again, you have a new piece of equipment.
Yep.
You're not stroking a bigger check to the IRS.
Yep.
And you're saving money, right?
And that's why I remind people, you're going to write that check at the end of the year.
Regardless.
Write it to ShopSaver. I'm going to at least give you something for it. You write it to the government, they're going to say thanks.
And then you're going to go home all
and you're not
sad.
even going to thank you. Let's be honest. They don't even say thank you. So, you're writing a check to the IRS regardless, right? But it's how big is that check going to be? Make that check smaller and then invest in capital in your business. Because by buying that ShopSaver, like you said, you write off $35,000 on that $100,000, write-off. And suddenly that money is turning your money into more money. Because what does that machine produce for you in the next 90 days? It pays that tax payment, right? It starts helping you get there. And so let's just look at some rough numbers here. Like we talked about it earlier, a $30,000, a $50,000, and $80,000 machine, right? That was 3 numbers we used earlier. What are those when you look at that, do you guys have, and maybe I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you guys have any idea on a $30,000, $50,000, $80,000? Look, how does Section 179 affect those machines roughly?
Yeah, so first off, we use a 35% tax bracket as an example. Here in Minnesota, if you make say 85 grand a year, you pay 20% in state taxes, or in federal income taxes rather, and then almost 10% in state taxes, right?
Yep.
So California, New York, any high tax state, including Minnesota, unfortunately, you're paying probably an effective tax rate of 30 up to 35%. So a good rule of thumb is basically any $1 that you spend, you're saving 33 cents in tax liability. So $30,000 machine purchase written off would save you about 10 grand in taxes. 50 would be like 17.5, so 17,500. And then 80 grand, which would be, like a fully loaded IS 612.
Yep.
You're close as $28,000, almost $30,000 in taxes that you'd save in that year that you put it into service. As you guys are kind of telling that story, I was reminded that almost shockingly, a lot of businesses don't know what their tax liability is going to look like until the year is over.
Isn't that crazy?
And so, thank God if you have a sharp-witted CPA that's on his game and looks at your year in December. And that's often when we get those calls from those stronger businesses.
Correct.
And they all say the same thing. My accountant told me I got to burn through some money here. Otherwise, we're stroking a big check at the end of the day.
I've had customers. I love that you said that because I have customers that have called me up over the years in December, right? I get a call on December 4th. Brandon, I have $46,184 I need to spend. You have what? Like, that's how much money we're going to spend. And you tell me how to spend it. Like, they just are so, like, their CPAs are good, right? They know exactly the number they need to come up with and spend. And it's like, you tell me how to do this, And it's like, there isn't a better company out there right now than ShopSabre to invest in because, for one, we're American made, right? You're investing in a product is going to be real, right? There's a lot of products from overseas that are, smoke and mirrors, right? They're going to tell you how great they are until you get it. But it's a company that's made here in America. It's something that we're proud to be a part of. But the other thing is because we're so vertically integrated here, you guys have walked around and see the facility, 100,000 square foot facility that we're really building machines in. We can deliver on short lead times. I mean, we have deliveries right now happening in as low as 2 weeks. If your CPA is calling you right now, or you're looking at your CPA and he says, yeah, you need to spend some money, ShopSabre is one of the few companies that can get you a piece of equipment before the end of the year so you can put it in service and qualify for Section 179.
Yeah.
Right.
You guys aren't at the mercy of what's happening overseas.
Correct.
And the supply chain and all that. To your point where you guys dictate when you can get machines out.
Correct.
Yep.
And
December 4th is doable.
Yeah.
To get in.
I can get it done. Exactly.
Yep.
And so, the difference is like, start planning for that now. And that's why we're doing this. It's like, don't wait till it's too late and then your CPA goes, oh, yeah, you're going to have to write a big check. Be proactive. Call your CPA today. Like, if you're hearing this and you have no idea, as you said, I don't know what my tax liability looks like, find out. Call them today. Say, I need to know what my tax liability looks like. I need to know if we need to consider Section 179.
I think that's just a good point in general, too, and not necessarily ShopSabre related. But, I mean, if you're listening to the podcast and you run a small business, one of the soundest investments that you can make is hiring a good accountant and a good attorney, right? Have them on retainer. It's going to cost you a couple grand a year, but those professionals have the potential of saving you, tens of thousands of dollars through, creative yet legal bookkeeping, right?
Correct.
And so if you're at a point, especially once you hit a second, third year in business, if you drop your full-time employment and you're doing this, as a full-time endeavor for yourself, I mean, you're really putting yourself at a disadvantage if you don't have, proper professional advisors helping you make the best decisions, right?
And I love that because, like, I think when you look at it from the outsiders, right? I have a lot of friends that are in business and we talk about business and it makes sense to us. But then I have a lot of friends that aren't in business and some of this is foreign to them, right? They don't understand it at all. And, a lot of the times I hear from them when we're hanging out, oh, they're just, the rich are hiding their money, blah, blah. It's like, no, like you have to look at it. Like, don't get me wrong. There are some people out there that are doing that, right? That exists. But the reality is, a lot of people in business, it's because of the expenses they have. Like they are spending a lot of money that offsets that. So that's why their tax liability looks so different on paper, is because they are reinvesting in their business and reinvesting in people. And a lot of that is by you buying the piece of equipment, you've now allowed your staff to do more. So you've invested in your people that you already have. So you're helping people. And so you're not getting out of something. It's not like it's a, like you said, I like that you use the word, a legal way of bookkeeping, because this isn't an illegal thing. This isn't like a shady way of doing it. It's the facts. The government wrote the Section 179. It's not like you're coming up with it. Like they have put this tax law in place to help businesses when they're investing in the economy.
Right. I mean, I don't think there's any secret that the tax code favors businesses and entrepreneurs, right? And so just being able to, the U.S. tax laws is 15,000 pages long,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So you need to have an understanding as to how you can play within the rules to maximize, the money in your pocket and minimize the amount that you're paying the federal or the state government.
And that's where the good CPA comes in. Because again, my hand's still up. I'm not that guy. And I'm not going to read the 15,000 pages. So the little I do read, right, because anybody has Google and everybody can go out and play with TurboTax, right? We all can do that. But you don't understand some of the small things that are written in there that you could be taking advantage of legally that can help you. And that's really what this is about, is that between you guys as a finance company, it qualified, not only are you not putting any cash flow out of your pocket, right? You guys finance the deal. And then you write it, we put it in service and you write it on Section 179. So you've really spent very little cash flow and you just took a huge tax savings, right? The tax savings alone pays for any interest that you may have financed.
And I think it highlights why we roll out our no payments for 90 days promotion in the fourth quarter, because it's often combined with that Section 179. So not only are you going to save potentially tens of thousands of dollars in income taxes that you would have paid had you not made that purchase, but more importantly, you've got a high quality machine tool, and so long as your credit looks okay, we can set it up with either no payments for 90 days or even reduced payments for up to 6 months. The thought is that gives you just this jump start on revenue, producing jobs, clearing invoices, and we've seen just an incredible amount of customers that have never once had to dig into their pocket to make a machine payment.
I'm glad you said that, because I was going to ask you about that, because I've seen it many times where a customer comes to us in the fourth quarter and they call us up again, need to buy a piece of equipment. They use you guys for financing, so no money down, right? They qualify for the no money down, no payment for 90 days. So they're literally into this deal for little skin, right? Just some doc fees, things, little things, right? We're into it for no more than you probably spent last weekend at the bar, okay? Like we're talking cheap stuff here, okay? You get into this machine. Shop Sabre builds you an American product. It's not something from overseas that's imported, that's low quality. It's a quality piece of equipment with a reputation that kind of speaks for itself. And now you have this machine running, and you've already been selling yourself to your customers, right? You've got jobs lined up. You're cutting those jobs with the machine. So you've already sold them. Those jobs are now higher profit than what you sold them at, because the labor you had factored into what it would take is now less. So you've made more money. You roll that money back into your bank account. Plus, come next year, you write a smaller check to the government to do the work you've already done. And now you put it all together. And a lot of people have told us 3-6 months down the road, they've paid for the machine.
The amount of early terminations we get for people that, think that, hey, I'm going to set this up over 3 or 5 years, but come to us 6 months into their term and saying, I've got so much cash on hand now that I just want to pay this off in full. So it's another testament to, the quality is one thing, but the legitimate ability to produce massive amounts of income.
Yep.
The machine doesn't necessarily print money,
Right.
but it's pretty close
Closest
to it.
thing to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you got to have
Legally. The closest thing to do it legally. Yeah.
Yeah, so you got to have the skill set and be the right person running the right business in the right market and have
Correct.
the right amount of grit.
We can't teach you how to run a good business.
No,
I mean, that's the end of the day. Like, if you're a bad businessman, you're going to go out of business regardless of what we do for you.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
try
can't
and
help.
help you.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can't help you there. But if you have a good head on your shoulders and a foundation, like you said, where you know how to market your business and you have customers and you know how to grow your business. Like, I can't find your customers for you.
Right.
But if you got the work lined up or you know how to go find the work, as you were saying, this is the way to do it.
And think about after they pay us off in 6 months, what's the next question they ask us? Can we look into getting a second machine?
Can we get a second one? Yeah. Or I need an edge band or
Yeah, that's my favorite is watching businesses grow in that way. Like guys who never thought. I've talked to so many customers that are like, we have the work, blah, blah, blah. I can't see how the machine's going to speed things up for us. And then I get the call from them, and they're like, we get calls all the time. I have a gentleman that called us last year around this time. Actually, it was December he called us, so it's a couple months still until he had called us. But he had called us, and he told Chad and I, it was one of Chad's customers, George is the guy's name, and he was like, guys, I have never, in the history of me running my business, been able to take time off in December to spend the holidays with my family. And this is like 2 weeks before the end of the year. And he's like, I am done for the year.
That's priceless.
He's like, I am literally caught up and I've worked the other jobs because of the timelines. They're going to be in January. So I am going to take 2 weeks off to spend Christmas and New Year's with my family for the first time in my business history.
Talk about an incredible gift to your wife and kids. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what he said. He's like, I get to spend time with them all. And he's like, and I don't have to worry about the money because we're on track. Like everything that was due is done. Everything that's coming up is on track. I don't have to worry about it. Like I'm not losing money as a business by not being there for those 2 weeks. And it's like without the piece of equipment, he said it flat out. Like you're sitting there having to cut parts by hand. It's not that he didn't want to take those same 2 weeks off. He couldn't because he couldn't produce the parts fast enough to meet the deadlines without having to use those hours.
For sure.
So he would have been, like he said, already focused on trying to get the projects for January caught up because he didn't want to fall behind for what he had lined up for January.
Yeah, and I have a similar story too. Just a quick side note. I was out elk hunting in Montana, and we have this guy that we're getting ready to go up into the mountains, and this guy's coming out of the mountains.
Yep.
And we talked to him a little bit, and I recognize a decal on his truck window. He's a woodworker out of Michigan.
Okay.
He owns a woodworking company, and the one thing he said, he's like, I get to come out here because we asked him how long he's here for, if he's seen anything, all that. He's like, hey, I get to bring my wife and kids out here for a week straight. I own my own business. And he said too, I have the right people doing and operating the right machines, so I can do this with my family.
Isn't that huge?
And he's like, it's the highlight of our summer, highlight of our year, most cases, that we get to come out here and do that. To your point, just because he made those capital investments. Right?
Yeah. And it's day one, you don't see it, right? Guys don't see that when they're making the decision, right? A lot of times they're stressing, right? Oh my God, am I making a mistake? Oh, should I do this? Should I do that? Because they're so concerned in the now, they don't think about the future. And there's so many businesses that live too much in the now, where if you lived for the future and you started to think, what future growth is there? What potential is there? How bogged down are my guys? Like there's so many business owners that are so busy trying to dig themselves out of the work that they have no time to look at what's causing the bottleneck. And therefore, for years, they sit there and bottleneck and they wear guys out and they lose good employees and they destroy their business from the inside out because guys who would have stayed with them for years, who were very capable, found a job opportunity, right? That's always what it is, right? Oh, I found an opportunity I couldn't pass up. You know what it was? It was an opportunity to grow. And if they don't see the opportunity to grow within your business, you're going to lose those guys. Mm-hmm. So it's like you have to have the tools and the capabilities to allow your team to grow. Because as they start to grow, your business begins to grow. Because a good employee will have as much passion for your business as you do if they see a reason to.
Right.
But if they feel like it's a dead end and, I'm going to sit here for the next 30 years breaking my back on this table saw, eventually they're going to find a way not to break their back for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And that a lot of times is going to go find the shop that has the CNC machine so they don't have to be in your shop.
Yep.
Well, and if we're talking about growth with employees, right, and you know, I don't want to discount being a craftsman, right? We've said that
I
a
love
couple
it.
times.
I love being a craftsman.
And so guys that work with their hands and it's a complete manual process, you know, there's beauty in that, right? But if we're talking about retaining good employees, especially the guys that you're paying, let's say, you know, $22 an hour, right?
Yep.
Not your 50 an hour guys, but your entry level shop production people.
Yep.
You know, what's going to keep them around is not, you know, measuring twice and cutting once on a table saw. It's going to be programming and nesting parts, you know, in a computer and watching and programming a machine to cut out that same job with extreme accuracy at, you know, 20% of the time that it would take them to do it by hand. When you get that right guy, you know, invested in programming and running that machine as his day job, there's a lot of pride that comes with being able to produce money on that tool for that business.
Yeah. And to your point, you're buying the equipment for the business, but you're buying it for that employee.
Yeah.
Right? You put your employees first, give more, take less.
Yeah. I mean, you see it here at Shop Sabre. That's what I've always done. I've always invested in the guys around me. Like, we buy software, we buy things that help make their jobs easier, which in turn they do more, and therefore it kind of comes full circle on me. It's not about what can I do to make my job easier. It's, well, how can I make their jobs easier? And I've said it many times in other podcasts and episodes is, you can have anything you want in life if you help enough people get what they want. And that's really what this is about. It's help your employees get what they need out of your business. And I promise you, you're going to be successful out of it. You know, and that's really where using the banking, as you guys said, you know, use the funds that are available to you. If you never explore financing, are you really being smart about things? Like, there's so many guys that feel like that pinching every penny makes them a more responsible person. But at the end of the day, like, let's be honest, like, we're all only here on this earth for so long. And it's like, you know, passing away with a you know, huge duffel bag full of money doesn't do anything for you. You know, it's one of those things where you got to invest in your own self sometimes, because that duffel bag could have been a, you know, Brinks truck. You know, like, how much money did you leave behind by pinching pennies? You know, you pinched every penny possible and you think you're successful, but you left millions of dollars on the table over your life because you just simply were so afraid to invest in yourself.
That's
It's a shame.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I think there's one thing I've always kind of envisioned, and this is just me, like, at the end of my life, looking back on my life, like, I hope there's like a memory, like, video at the end where you're like sitting there and you're watching your life.
Yeah.
But I hope there's somebody there to point out, like, if you would have done this differently, this would have happened. You know, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you think to yourself, like, all the things you did in your life, if I would have just done this differently, what would the outcome been? You know, and it's like, I think about that in my business a lot, where it's like, I always try to give myself the best chance for success. Don't be afraid to take a risk once in a while. When, like, COVID hit and we invested in a mill. You guys saw the mill we bought. Yeah. That's not a small mill. We bought that mill during COVID. A lot of businesses were tightening everything up. Oh my God, what's going to happen? Exactly. And I knew eventually things are going to happen, right? Right now, there's an opportunity for me to buy this piece of equipment at a discount. Before
the competitors even think about buying it.
But my thing is, that discount may not exist in 2 years.
Nope.
You know, today, if I went to buy that, it doesn't. Exactly.
It does not exist.
And that's what I'm saying is, today, that price doesn't exist that I paid for that mill. But it's the same thing to be said about the Shop Sabre or any other machine. You know, you're looking at an edge band, or you're looking at a dust collector, a welder, whatever you're looking at. That truck even. Everybody's like, oh, these prices are too extra. You know, they've raised too much. They're only going up. It's going to happen. The world is not going to. There's never going to be a situation where the prices are all going to go back down to what they were 10 years ago. It's not going to happen. Gas prices have never gone there. The houses have never gone there. Food's never gone there. Equipment's not going there either. So you're passing up $10,000, $20,000 discounts today because you might save 1% tomorrow. Take the $10,000 to $20,000 discount, put it towards the interest that you were going to spend, and call it a wash.
And that's what, to your point too, everything you hear on TV is. It feels like is doom and gloom, right?
Yep.
And I hear it every day when I'm talking to customers that are looking at financing a Shop Sabre CNC, is they don't have that view on life. Yep. They don't have I'm going to wait. You know, we already covered this, you know, wait to save some money.
Yep.
I don't know what's going to happen. The guys that go out there and do it, like what you guys did with the mill.
Yep.
it pays dividends in
It
the long
does.
term.
It always ends up. I mean, that was the best purchase we ever made in company history. Obviously, other than me. I mean, my dad hiring me was probably the best. But
Well, we'll ask.
it was
Jim
tra-
that.
it was
We'll ask
tra-
Jim
no, we
that.
don't have to. I'll just tell you.
It was child labor wages though when you got actually hired when you were 12,
Yeah, he had
12
a,
years,
he
12
had
years
a,
old. Yeah.
a steal of a deal.
Yeah, exactly. No, you don't have to ask him though. I promise. I can speak for him. He thinks I'm the best that there ever was. So, no, in all seriousness though, like you said, like it's those kind of purchases, those capital investments are the greatest thing we've ever done. And as you're sitting here thinking about this, hopefully today this episode has helped you with that. It is the year end. We got a lot of deals right now. We got a lot of stuff going on. You guys have no payment for 3 months.
Yep,
90 days. 90
Is that what it
days.
is?
Yep. So even if you move forward in December, that 90 days would start in December, so you would have a payment in January or February.
Yeah. So there it is. Like, that's the cool thing is you buy right now and you're going to kick that payment out. You have that option. Shop Sabre has some great deals on equipment right now. We have some deals actually on edge banders, dust collectors, some other things too. So if you're a customer listening to this and you're like, I don't need another Shop Sabre, but I do need that tax write-off, come get an edge bander. Come get a dust collector. Come get an air compressor. Whatever else you need for your shop. Weld tables. We got plasma tables, whatever it is. But there's a lot of ways to do this. And, it's still free, and it's always been free to just call us. Pick the phone up. Call our team. Our sales team will walk you through it. They'll show you what we have for options. And maybe it's not the time to do it. But if you never pick the phone up and call, you never know.
And Shop Sabre and Geneva, we benefit and gain nothing by trying to force you into something that doesn't make sense.
Correct.
Nothing.
Nobody's commission paid off that stuff.
Yeah, I work with all the Shop Sabre reps here. Chad, Travis, all of them. They're straight shooters.
Yeah.
Your interest is in our interest.
Yeah.
We're not in it for us. We're in
Correct.
it for you guys. You picking up the phone, we're not going to feed you a bunch of bull crap.
Yep.
We're going to shoot you straight. And if it makes sense, great. And if it doesn't, we'll tell you. We'll be the first to tell you.
Correct. And there's people, like I said, there's people like that do live in this world. You're right. They don't work for me. I'll promise you that. They don't last on this team. There's a reason why my team is the way they are. They are very straight shooters. We're very honest people. We've got a reputation to uphold. We've been doing this for over 2 decades. My dad, built something that I'm pretty proud of, and I have no intention of wrecking that, being standing here. So, for me, we got a lot of things coming and a lot of cool things that we're doing, but the number one thing is taking care of our customers.
Correct. And I have maybe a little funny story. I don't know if it's about David or another coworker we have, but
Here we go.
He was in the interview, and it goes to the point of we hire good people. We don't always hire the smartest. Me and David are not the smartest people. And in the interview, our president asked, "Why is your GPA so high?" And he's just like, "Well, what do you mean? Isn't that a good ththing?" He's like, "Well, I don't know. Some guys high GPAs, aren't the best people." Not saying that that's a direct correlation, but we don't look at, the numbers, the GPAs, what you've done in the past.
Absolutely.
We look at the human aspect of it.
Correct.
And that's how you build a good company. Geneva, Shop Sabre is hiring good people.
And that's the same way we are. I love that statement because I'll be honest, I don't look at GPAs ever. I've never asked a GPA from any person I've ever hired, okay? I've also never asked what school you went to. Because guess what? I don't care.
Doesn't matter.
Like, to me, did you go to school? Cool. We'll talk about it. But at the end of the day, I've hired a lot of really good people that have 0 college education who are some of my best employees.
Exactly.
Like, as you said, the GPA, the college they went to doesn't make the person. To me, who you are as a human being. I have a lot of really good people that work for me. And, I have a lot of people on this team that they're out there to help people and help businesses. And there's a lot of customers that I work with that they're some of the nicest, most genuine people that I've ever met with in my life. But if you looked at them on paper, they probably wouldn't be impressive, and that's who we are. That's who the company is. That's who you guys are. Like I said, hopefully everybody has enjoyed today's episode. Kind of got long, so thanks for tuning in as long as you have. But it's so easy to talk to you guys. Like I said, I just love having these conversations with you guys.
We could talk about speeding tickets for hours.
No, thanks. We're over there.
Well, with that, I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. We'll have more episodes coming. But hey, Connor, David, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having us.
Appreciate it, Brandon.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to Sabre Talk. Like I said, I'm Brandon, and we'll be back with another episode.